Evening all, hope you're well. Thanks for joining me on Sunday, well, it's early evening here now in the UK, but it's obviously early afternoon elsewhere and so forth, so I hope the levels are good and that you can all hear me okay, so... Hi there, Pishbot, hope you're well. Hello, Era42. Dave, I think you was third, but nice to see you all the same. Hi, Just80. Pishbot with his lovely vibes. Hi there, Doug, how you doing? Yeah, I guess it is actually morning there in Tucson. Yeah. Hey, dirty boys singing to God, hope you're well. Just getting all started here, so it's nice to see so many nice people, so sound levels are fine, thanks Doug. So, yeah, I guess most of you probably follow me on Twitter, but yeah, I guess, yeah, most of you follow me on Twitter. If you don't, it's on the screen now, it's Lab Pixel Vixen, just because Lab, because, well, I badly speak French. And because Pixel Vixen itself was taken, but do follow me on there. But basically, a few of you will probably have seen that I did a poll earlier on today to say you can pick which Amiga I do tonight's or this evening's stream from, and the results was a pretty triumphant win for the Amiga 1200 this evening. So it's its first time on the stream. So yeah, this is its debut. So be nice to it. I'll try to be. So yeah. Oh, Dave's creating videos himself right now. Oh, thanks, Pishbot. Yeah, it is quite cosy. Although I do have a new sofa on the way. Probably not going to be here for another 6 weeks or so, but. Yeah, that sofa's done me really well. Nothing special, just from IKEA. So yeah. So I'm glad the levels are all good. This evening, what I thought we could go through is just looking at some of the stuff that I've been working on the past week or so, but also sort of getting on with some actual sort of painting and pixeling. So yeah. So let's crack on. I'm just going to show you my Amiga 1200 to start with. So it's wonky cam time. So. Let me just come down here and just make sure I can see what I'm doing. So there it is. It's a real beauty. I picked this up at the towards the latter part of last year. It's not my Amiga 1200 that I had back in the day, as I previously mentioned in the streams. Sadly, my Amiga 1200 that I had back in the day was towered. It was butchered. It started off as nice looking as this one here, but eventually, like so many of us in the late 90s, we put our Amiga 1200s into towers, and mine sadly died. But as you can see, it's in really good condition, this one. So unfortunately, because I'm having to hold this webcam, it's not really focusing very well. But yeah, you can see that it's pearly white. So yeah, it's in super condition, so I aim to keep it that way. Okay. My 1200 is accelerated, Doug. Only slightly. 3 AM in Australia, Colin. You're keen, or you've got what's the word? Where you can't sleep. Can't think of the word. You know, it's there, but I can't think of it. So, but a happy Monday morning. Oh, Doug's just said so. Happy Monday morning for you. So, yeah, it's in really good condition, Ravi. It's amazing. I was even everything it came with was in superb condition. Like even the power supply. You know, that's insane, isn't it? I don't know whether this was an alopecia. Amiga 1200, so big up the alopecia massive, but yeah, Night Shift. Oh, well, that makes more sense. Insomnia is the word I was thinking of. Thanks, Dirty Boy, sing to God. Yeah, Insomnia. So I should remember, really. Faithless. What a classic tune. Anyway, so, yeah, they should sell Factor 50 for my Amiga and eBay, so, but might make it a bit greasy. So, but anyway, so, yeah, it's in great condition. So let's flick over onto the Amiga. Let's brought it up. Oh, hang on, wrong scene. There we go. Ooh, a little bit out of balance there. So let me just tidy this up. Oh, hang on a minute. That's my Amiga keyboard. Let's just hit backspace down here. This is so professional, isn't it? Oh. There we go. I think we're all good. Right. Awesome. Okay, hopefully the levels are still good and it's not all gone strange. So it was a really good score. It wasn't the cheapest Amiga 1200 that you'll ever see, but with all the soft, games that it came with 40 odd blank discs. It was, and in the condition it was in, had an external drive, just lots of really good condition stuff basically. So I was more than happy to pick it up in the condition that it was in. So let's just get this sorted out. Okay, awesome. So Collins and Secret of Mana soundtrack. Yep, you've got it in one. Yeah, it's one of my favourite soundtracks of all time. Seeing as Secret of Mana is one of my favourite games of all time. So yeah, this Amiga 1200 runs like stink, really, compared to, I'm so used to Amiga 600 now, so I'm just going to turn it off, so don't panic, everybody. And this thing just boots insanely fast, so yeah, it's somewhat quicker than the Amiga 600, it has to be said, but so anything faster than my 68,000, stock A600 is quick, so yeah, there we go. Where if all computers could boot that quickly these days, eh? Anyway, so what have I been working on this week? Well, you might have seen it on Twitter that I finished my K-On 10 tribute of Yui. I'll just show you some of the graphics that, sort of some of the stages of doing this graphic. So I just started off with, sort of a simple outline of Yui. I might have shown this last week. So yeah, just started off in the way that I've previously been showing. And if any of you caught my video that I put out at the start of the week about stencils and Deluxe Paint having layers, I highly recommend that you watch that if you didn't. But essentially I build up my outlines in blue, my sketch in blue, or a distinct colour that I'm not using, and then basically I go over it and adjust it with black and build up the sketch. And so essentially over time I managed to over a couple of weeks, rather leisurely it has to be said, I built up the graphic. So I'm just going into Dopers here because this just makes it a little bit easier for me to let's see if I can remember how to do not. I'm probably just making this complicated for myself, aren't I, really? Let's be honest. Hey, I remembered. So yeah, so it starts off there. And also, guys, if you have any questions for me in the chat, whether it's about what I'm showing or about Pixar in general, whether it's about Deluxe Paint or Amiga or retro computer or retro gaming, just throw them into the chat. Happy to answer. So that was the beginnings, and then on to the next stage. There's not much difference here. I've just obviously done a little bit of work on the eyes. and just a little bit further work on the eyes, and obviously sketched in the hand and the arm, and getting that hand right took quite a bit of doing, but we got there. And then you can see that I've drawn in essentially my sketch of the rest of Yui there. And let's just make sure I can see all of the messages. Cool. Are you drawing with a tablet or the Amiga mouse? So I use just an Amiga mouse. Let me just show you that. Just a moment there, dirty boy, sing to God. Nice short handle. So this is my Alpha Data Maker mouse. As you can see, it's not plugged in at the minute. This is what I generally recommend for doing pixel art, but the only downside is it is still a ball mouse like most classic Amiga mice. So it's a lot better than the tank mice or the basic Amiga mice that you got from Commodore. It's still pretty good. It's got a better resolution. This is the mouse that I would generally recommend. Otherwise, I literally picked up this week an Alpha Data optical Mega Mouse, or whatever they want to call it. So here it is. You have to use it with this rather strange looking mouse mat. It's not like modern day optical mice which have illuminated LEDs or whatever they are. So you have to use it with this mouse mat. It's not a magic eye. I've tried staring at this, but there is definitely no pink elephant hidden in it. So, but it's actually really good, and it gets over the foibles of using a ball mouse. I'm loving the sync, says Ravi. All sorts of streams, sets and quality indeed. Yeah, the only thing that I'm not going to be able to upgrade is myself, Ravi. So that will remain amateurish, out of sync, and behind the times. But you know, I'm okay with that. So, loved your mix last night as well, Ravi. Unfortunately, I didn't see it live. I was out most of yesterday. It was a really nice day down here, so I was out walking. Yeah, it's really enjoyed your mix. It was very different, but really, your skills are amazing. I really admire that. Oh, thanks, Dirty Boy Sing to God. Yeah, it does take some time to get accurate with a mouse, but I just get so many years of doing it, and yeah, in low resolutions, using a mouse makes more sense. But when I'm doing sort of more modern, you know, like with Photoshop or with Sketchbook, I will use a graphics tablet. So I used to use Wacom tablets, but I've just been getting really well with the Galmon tablets in the past couple of years. So I do use other tablets. How long on average is it? Hi Colin 316. It's nice to hear from you. How long does it take me to finish an image? It all depends on the image. But this one, which I'm showing you, took me about 12 hours. But I wasn't in any real particular hurry, and I really wanted to work hard on this image. Can I do it with my left hand? No, not really. I think you can generally tell which arm of mine can I do it with my left hand. Ah, sounds disgusting. I don't know, but yeah. So yeah, as you can see, you can tell which of my arms gets more use. My left wrist is tiny compared to my right wrist. Enough said about that. Yeah, you can use a modern optical mouse with your Amiga Just 80. It's just that I picked up this one, which was a vintage bit of kit that was at a really good price, and I thought, well, let's give it a go. So yeah, Error 42, I agree. Ball mice can be a real pain. Sometimes I've been sat here and I've been flicking the cable and I'm thinking, what am I doing? Yeah, Dave, it takes some real getting used to with a graphics tablet, doesn't it? Hi Phil, nice to see you. Hope you're well. Yeah, they are expensive, but yeah, it's worth getting used to. Dirty Boy Sing to God. So yeah, you're a true lefty. This is it. Well, I'll don your beret and let's sing the... done the classic Vicky thing now, starting a sentence without knowing all the words. what was that song that they used to sing at Labour Party conferences? The not was it Ode to Joy? It wasn't Ode to Joy. Anyway, what else? So, but yeah, it is a bit of dedication actually gone in. But so just moving swiftly onwards, you can see that I'm just doing some basic shading here, and yeah, I was quite happy with the detail in Yui's eyes. A little bit more detail in her blazer now, so her, you know, there's a bit of shading there, and also I think on the little necktie there, so, and I started drawing the blossom that Yui was reaching out for, just very roughly sketched in an outline of roughly where the surrounding blossom would go, and then I've sort of drawn in sort of like the blossom branch. And you can see that I'm now beginning to work up the final sort of surrounding for the blossoms. So, and there we go. This is almost finished. I just need to actually finish the bottom part of the image. You'll just notice around Yui's skirt, it looks a bit unfinished around there. But I will finish that up. And I've also coloured in a little bit of the background there. So, yeah. The red flag or something like that. Yeah, it probably is. Not something I find myself singing very often, it has to be said, or singing in general, just purely because the council has a prohibition order on me singing in public. It was just generally considered to be a human rights hazard, so I've tended to abide by it. At least that's what my restraining order suggests that I do. Yeah, so that's the image that I've been working on over the last couple of weeks. It's, yeah. You're shocked that Zul wasn't my #1 pick, Phil. What can I say? Oh, and that's another image which I never finished, but maybe I'll finish that one day. So that's Yui. Really pleased with that. It took a bit of time, but it was well worth it. I'm just going to check the stream's keeping up okay. I just boosted the quality this evening to full HD, so hopefully you can see this all in 1920 by 1080. Looks good to me, so just so I can hear my... Okay, I think we're all good. So what have I been working on apart from that? Well, I've been starting to do a bit of work on... Sorry, I'm reading the chat as well. So I love the blossom. There's nice colour palette choice. Yeah, thanks for that, Dirty Boys. Things to go. I don't have a... Well, actually, apart from this example, let's just bring this into Deluxe Paint 4. So this looks really... I posted this on Twitter, I think, on Friday, because I wanted, or it might have been Thursday, and I just wanted to show something that looked a bit rubbish, a bit crap, that you know, would hopefully give you a little bit of a confidence boost if you're sort of still getting started with your pixel art, to think, well, actually, I could do that, and here's somebody who ostensibly kind of knows what they're doing, and you know, and if they're producing stuff like this and happy to show this, then there's hope for me. And I said on Twitter it was a bit rubbish, and then everybody's just like, but it isn't rubbish, it's actually really good. I'm just like, wow, you won't see nothing yet. So oh, it looks nice and sharp. That's cool. So oh, thanks, Ravi. That's very kind. Yeah, disc mags are really what was it? It might have been on Indie Retro News, or it's one Amiga Rama, or one of the really good news websites that's out there. Posted a link to a website that has a really good collection of Amiga disc mags, and I remember like reading LSD and Grapevine back in the day, and I'm really excited actually to download a few of those and go through those. But yeah, it has crossed my mind maybe to contribute in a bigger way. I think in the past year or so, you know, last year when I dug out my Amiga 600 for the first time in 18 years or so, my pixel art skills were really quite rusty. So I've been gradually building up my confidence again. And I feel that now that I've restored my skills somewhat, maybe I feel a bit more confident about doing that. So, oh, thanks, Colin. That's really kind. So it's really nice that, I mean, I'm not really good at taking compliments. I've always said that I'd rather my work speaks for itself, but so yeah, I can be a bit bashful, but I'm going to learn to take compliments. So yeah. Yeah, Colin 316. I was Rough and Tumble is brilliant. I love Rough and Tumble. We'll see how we do with today's stream. I'm aware that Amiga Bill is streaming at 8 p.m. BST, or I think it's at 7 p.m. UTC. So that's roughly in, let me just check the time, an hour and a half time. So I don't really want to overlap with him because I like to catch up with Bill, and I'm sure a lot of you guys do too. So, but yeah, the reason I chose Zor was because it's contemporary with the original Sonic and Super Mario World. I just wanted to recapture what it was like in maybe late '92. You're presented with the choice. You've got the Index catalogue, you've got the Argos catalogue, the Little Woods catalogue, or whatever, and or you've gone into Dixon's, and there you have the Super Nintendo, brand new, out in the UK or Europe. You've got the Mega Drive, you've got the Amiga, perhaps the Amiga 1200 is literally the first few on the shelves, and it's what you go for. And I just wanted to sum up those feelings, you know, to recapture that vibe. So yeah, but we will be covering some of the better Amiga games. There are much better platforms to the Amiga, like I quite enjoy Wiz and Liz, that's okay, but my main jam are things like Rough and Tumble, as Colin 316 says, and also what else do I like? Robocod 2, James Pond 2 Robocod's brilliant. So yeah, okay, so what I'm working on here is some cliff tops, and let me just flip back here. One of the things that I had forgotten about with Amiga OS was these brilliant app icons. So I'd forgotten how drag and drop the Amiga was, and so I just started refining some of these outcrops here, and just going to drag that one in. You can see that I'm gradually refining this whole area here, and then I've obviously adjusted the colour pattern on this one. I think I was experimenting with some extra half bright. Oh, I've jumped. You can see some stuff which you're not meant to see. How did that happen? Let me just drag over that. So, but you can see that I'm refining these outcrops here. So, yeah. Hi there, Mirko. Buona giornata. Si, a tutti. Yeah, we. Si, rather. Si, we. Yeah. No. Yeah. I'm still finding this whole streaming like quite complicated. Yeah, buona giornata a tutti. Yes. Yeah. I still hooked on a Spring and Monty on the Running 92. Yeah, well, I was still playing my C64 in 92 as well. I think the thing that I enjoyed on my C64 was two games. There was CJ's Elephant Antics, which I featured a couple of weeks ago in the Amiga game stream on Friday, and a DJ Puff that was quite good on the C64 as well, which is very similar to CJ's Elephant's Antics, and also there was this game called Bod Squad, really tough but quite good. So yeah. Yeah, so right, so this is basically where I've got to, and the way that this works. So let's just clear this. Well, in fact, actually, I'm just going to go back to Outcrop 1A. Doug's liking the drag and drop nature of Amiga OS. It's actually really impressive. Oh, what's going on here? Oh, have I got a guru? Something strange is going on. Shay Amiga. Okay. This is why I use the Amiga 600. It's super reliable. You bang the Amiga 1200 on and it starts playing silly buggers. Okay, let's just reboot. Yeah, the Amiga's drag and drop is just, oh look, guru. Oh, yeah, I don't get that with the Amiga 600. Oh well. How funny. Okay, right. It is boss fight time, yeah. Right. Yeah, drag and drop in the Amiga is brilliant, isn't it? Right, back where we were. Don't know what happened there. It never does it on my Amiga 600, so how strange. Okay, so let's just recap how I got to the stage. Remember, in one of the very first videos that I did on pixel art, I talked about direction of light, and that's all about where the the source of light is coming from. And what we can tell from here is that the source of light is actually coming from this direction here, because the lighter parts of the image are illuminated on this side, and then gradually what you'll have is the shadows over there. So this is where your shadow is going to be. So yeah, so that's key to understanding how to get this depth. Ooh, I've got that as my background, haven't I? That one seemed pretty drastic. It did, yeah, Guru Meditation. That was the Amiga's crash screen, sadly. Yeah, I hate the idea of crashing as well, Ravi. Yeah, I'm just glad that I scheduled it so I didn't crash with your awesome mix last night. So, but I knew that I was going to be out yesterday, so... Yeah, Disney Animation Studios, brilliant. We did cover that a couple of weeks ago, Colin, and we're going to be doing more of that. So essentially, having decided where the source of light is, you know, I say it's simply a case, but essentially all I did was I just started building up. I'm just going to keep this relatively tidy. Some sort of sense of shading. So I started off with sort of some bits here, and then. Remember, you can use the comma key to pick a colour off of the screen, which is really handy. And then I might just take this one here, and then I can just gradually start building up this sense of depth with things. And hopefully, you can see that very quickly you can start building up this almost pseudo 3D look. It's quite simple, isn't it? You can use the minus key to shrink your brush. Likewise, you can use the plus key just to enlarge it. And yeah, it's so just remember that comma key is great for picking out a colour on the screen. Yeah, I'm not sure why we got a Guru there, because usually Deluxe Paint 4 is really stable for me. But honestly, as I say, I've been using my Amiga 600 mostly. So, but yeah, usually the 1200 is pretty stable as well. But there you go. So yeah, it's very powerful to use the keyboard with Deluxe Paint. So do make the most of it. I'm going to get that colour there. So you can see how building up these sort of layers means that you can get some very neat and effective sort of 3D going. You just got to sort of think about how this would look in real life, but then abstract it, because obviously. The thing with pixel art is that as soon as you start getting, or if you're just starting out and you're trying to do uber realistic stuff, it never lacks the clarity which pixel art requires. And, you know, it takes time to build up a sense of realism. And I'll be honest with you, I don't know that my skills lay with doing super realistic pixel art personally. I think my skills are better placed in a slightly more abstract sense. So yeah. So yeah, this is how I sort of build up that sort of pseudo 3D look. And I'm just using the freehand tool for this, which is D on the keyboard. So V for the straight vertical line, which is the mnemonic, I think, for the vertical, you know, the V shortcut. But otherwise D for draw is the mnemonic. So yeah, so you can see that, you know, with a steady hand and a half decent mouse, I mean, the tank mice are okay, but you just got to get used to the way they behave, and just make sure it's nice and clean. I mean, if it's a pretty good condition tank mice, you might find that it behaves okay. But yeah, so you can see how relatively easily we was able to sort of build up a sort of almost 3D looking cliff edge there, I suppose, or rocks. So, oh yes, it's Hitch that does it. Yeah, thanks, Jossati, that's great. So, yeah, and of course, obviously, yeah, C64 streams as well. So, you know, guys like Hazemaker and who else? Hitch does some C64 streaming as well. I think Maddie, well, Maddie was live last night. I jumped into the chat every now and then last night. I was actually playing games, so I wasn't actually following that much, but she also streams quite a bit. Well, I don't think she streams loads, but she does put together a lot of, I forget what she calls them now, but like, you know, where she plays particular games. So, but I think she might be thinking of doing some more streaming, so that's quite an exciting development if she does. So, but yeah, this is a great way of doing a bit of, you know, sort of pseudo rock phases and stuff like that. So, and of course, obviously, you can do it how you like. So, how would I go about doing a rock? So, I'm just going to draw this using perhaps this dark brush here. Let's just build up a bit of a, I don't want to draw something too big. So I'm just going to draw this rock. Now, as I've drawn it, I've been thinking about sort of like the planes of it, as it were, like how this looks in sort of almost like 3 dimensions. So I might just bring that there. Bring that down there. I might actually just mix this up just a little. So this is just using the straight line tool, that V shortcut. As you can see, I've got the tool selected there. So hey Dazzy, I hope you're well. Glad that you've caught this stream. So sorry you missed the one the other night. I think with the change of the clocks and that, it's been a bit confusing as to work out where everybody's up, really, isn't it? Actually, let's keep this relatively simple. I don't want to go overboard, but you can see how I've basically built up this sort of almost 3D object. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to very basically shade this. So I'm going to have, I'm going to have that as sort of like right there, and I might take this shade here, and in front of the rocks. Let's do there, and go there. Actually, for that one, I'm gonna still use this colour. So you can also use the square brackets keys to move through the palette. So the left square bracket moves the colour sort of back one, the right square bracket moves forwards one. So yeah, that looks pretty good. And then what I can do is I'm just going to magnify now. So I'm just going to go back to my vertical brush tool, pick the colour with the comma key, and what I can do is I can start refining this now. And I might just bring in just a little of this. And just tidy this bit up a little bit. Just going to pick this shade here just so that sits nicely there. Just going to build in just a few little curves just to give a slightly more naturalistic look. We'll just bring that down there a little bit. Yeah, so if you've got any questions about what I'm doing in the chat, just always ask. You know, happy to answer any questions about either what I'm doing on screen now or whatever, really. So I'll just bring that down there. So yeah, the comma key is going to be really helpful to you guys if you're doing a bit of pixel art, I meant that colour rather, because it will save you zipping left and right over the keyboard all the time. With your mouse, sorry, it said the opposite of what I wanted to say. I think the thing is that when I'm concentrating doing stuff like this, I find that my ability sometimes to talk goes out the window. I don't know why. I might just make this a lighter shade actually, it's a bit too strong. There we go. Just check that everything's all working okay still. Still good. I was never this well versed at D-Paint shortcuts. Yeah, they're really handy actually, and you know, they do make life a lot easier. So well worth learning them. Jumping ahead a bit there. There we go. They do make all the difference to the fluidity of using the application. That was one of the things with Brilliance, was that they, Digital Creations, who created Brilliance but also made hardware like the DCTV and so forth. When they launched Brilliance, they made sure that pretty much all the shortcuts between Brilliance and Deluxe Paint were exactly the same. Because obviously for, you know, people working in the industry, to convince them to move away from Deluxe Paint, it was going to take more than just having a better product as such. You know, it was going to be all about you know, keeping continuity of what people were used to. So if they could prove that it was going to be easy for people to move over to to Brilliance, it was this was the way to do it. So yeah, animation, we've covered a little bit of that actually. Dirty Boy Sings to God. I did a bit of that a couple of weeks ago, and we will be doing more because I do love doing animation on the Amiga. It's hard work compared to obviously more modern systems, obviously, but it's still a lot of fun. So, and if something's fun, well, it doesn't really matter, does it? So what I'm doing is I'm just shading this rock just to using dithering and so forth, because this is what helps, you know, give the semblance of more than the colours that we have on screen. So Phil says that he didn't even realise there were shortcuts. Yeah. Yeah, they're pretty essential, I think, to getting on with Deluxe Paint at any real pace. Dirty Boys Sing to God asks, how long between the last D-Paint and the first Photoshop? Well, actually, D-Paint and Photoshop ran concurrently. I think the first version of Photoshop came out in around about 1988, maybe 89. I might be wrong about that, but it was certainly the late 80s. I'm pretty certain that by 1990 version 2 had probably come out for Windows. I think. I'm not 100% clear about Photoshop's timeline, but I do know that by 1995, which is when Electronic Arts released the last version of Deluxe Paint for the Amiga, Photoshop version 3 had come out. Both, I think, Photoshop 3 was the same version number for Windows and Mac. I think so, but the thing with Photoshop was it was really confusing because the version numbers didn't really have any concurrency with Windows and the Mac version for quite a few years. So whilst you might have had, like, for example, version 4 point something on Windows, you know, you might sort of only had version 3 on a Mac or something silly like that. But essentially they ran concurrently. Because I remember being shown Photoshop version... what version would it have been? It was Photoshop version 3 in 1995. And it was the first version that included layers. Which... It's hard to imagine now a version of Photoshop without layers, but actually for the first 5 or so years of Photoshop's life, it didn't have them. So yeah, it wasn't something that was in the product from the get-go. So I think a lot of people who, you know, have been using Photoshop many years will be quite surprised that that wasn't necessarily always part of the product. So yeah, so basically, version 5 of Deluxe Paint came out in 1995. It's the last version, sadly. That was EA's last product for the Amiga, both in terms of games and productivity software. If you Google Deluxe Paint 5 and Dallas Hodgson, get the words out, they were one of the last developers working on Deluxe Paint. It was them and Leoza. I think Chuck Swan also worked on it, version 5. And yeah, so they were the last developers of Deluxe Paint, because by this time EA had discontinued the version that existed for the PC. And yeah, so the Amiga was the last sort of supported version of Deluxe Paint. But yeah, they were concurrent for many years. I think when Photoshop first came out in 89 or 1988, you would have had... Oh, boss fight time. Well, it is on my headphones anyway. Yeah. Oh, Photoshop 1.0 1990. Oh, okay, so it came out a little bit later than I remembered. But yeah, thanks for that, Josh Stacey. And yeah, original D-Paint was indeed 1985 Ravi. I've got the original version here, not in this room, but I have showed it on the streams before. But it's a bit of a curiosity these days, because it doesn't support changing the screen resolution. So maybe, well, certainly the version I've got is, as far as I know, the PAL version, but it's locked to 320 by, whoops, should be using the comma key, 320 to by 200. So yeah, it's a little bit limiting if you want to do anything beyond sort of NTSC low res without overscan drawings. But yeah, it's interesting to see, you know, and you know, I'm glad I've got my copy of it. But yeah, I wouldn't recommend using Deluxe Paint version 1.0 these days. It's just a bit too clanky to use. It doesn't have stencils. I'm actually going to put out a video this week about which version of Deluxe Paint should you get. So look out for that. I've written a script. I'm probably going to record it tomorrow night and hopefully get it out tomorrow night. So look out for that. There was 0.x versions in 88, 89. That must be what I was thinking of. I seem to vaguely remember playing around with Photoshop version 0.7 or something like that, when it might have been called the Photoshop. This would have been well after those days, because I wouldn't have obviously had a Macintosh in 1988 because I'd have been 5 years old. So and funny enough, as a 5-year-old, I didn't have the $4,000 or so that a Mac 2 cost. Strange world, isn't it? What's it coming to when you're 5 years old and can't afford a brand new Mac 2? Yeah. So yeah, so this is generally how I would start drawing rocks, yeah, they're quite good because they're just sort of geometric shapes. They're quite good for sort of getting used to the form of things and stuff like that. So I think they're quite a good starter thing to, and of course obviously there's nothing to stop you bringing in non-angular shapes with them. So like with all things pixel art related, it's just a matter of patience. But I think the thing is that you have to have a certain temperament with doing pixel art anyway. It's not meant to be something that you do really quickly. It's meant I just enjoy the relaxation of it all and so forth because, yeah, it's fun. Hey there, Mauro, back from holiday. Did you enjoy Rome? I hope you enjoyed it. So, oh, I'm glad you enjoyed the video, Phil. Yeah, Super Play's great. I've got some magazines over there. Maybe I'll do another Super Play retrospective. I love that magazine. So, oh, you had a paint tool for your C64. There's a few, wasn't there? There was OCP Art Studio, which came bundled with a mouse. I think Daytel used to bundle that with the Commodore 1351, wasn't it? The C64 mouse. And you also had Koala Paint, which had the Koala pad. I never had that. I think the paint package that I had with the C64 and still have, because it'll be up in the loft, was Image Maker or something like that, but I was not rich enough, because I was only about 8 or 9 at the time, to have a mouse for my C64, so you had to paint with your joystick, which, needless to say, was atrocious. So, yeah. So that was one of the big things about the Amiga, was like, wow, I can paint with a mouse. So in many respects, I know we was going on about how drawing with a mouse is really, you know, like how do you manage that kind of thing? But actually, it's something that I've grown used to over the years. So let's just shade in this top part here. Actually, I'm going to just go over here for this. F for Phil on Deluxe Paint, so, oops, just about I've got one level of undo with D Paint, isn't it? You've gained a few kilos thanks to your parents, oh Mauro. Well, when in Rome, do as the Romans do, as they say. I've travelled lots of Italy. I adore it. You know, Italians are just the nicest of people, so I've always had a good time. But I've never actually been to Rome. It's on my hit list. I've been to Naples. I've been to Sorrento. I've been to the Amalfi Coast. I've done a lot of the north of Italy, so Turin, Genoa, Milan, Vicenza, Verona, obviously Venice. Where else have I been in Italy? I've been to Meta Lakes like Maggiore and Locorta, which is beautiful. I love Orto San Giulio. It's a real hidden gem. Strezza, Lake Como, obviously, and I found Como a bit too... I don't know, Como doesn't do it for me. It's dramatic, but it's very congested. Actually, one of my favourite places in that region, I think Bergamo is still in Lombardy, isn't it? But yeah, Bergamo, I love Bergamo. It's one of the... It's gorgeous. Really underrated and a bit of a hidden gem. So, yeah, no, I love Italy. And I love Italian food. Who doesn't? So, what's not to like about Italian cuisine? Pasta, pizza, The tomatoes are just making me hungry. Making me so hungry. Yeah. Oh, Phil, you were having seafood. Better than you guys have put it. Yeah, well, me too. I mean, when I was younger, most of my stuff was bought in Barnstaple in North Devon, which Dave knows well if he's still in the chat. But occasionally I'd visit relatives here in Worthing. I've since, well, I moved to Brighton in 2002. So I've been down this way for quite some time now. But I moved to Worthing, proper, in 2006. I now just live outside of Worthing, actually. But yeah, I like Worthing. I like living in Sussex. Do you know, I'm making a mess of this. Let me just start this again. Yeah, Appro is more similar to Photoshop than Deluxe Paint is. That is true, Doug. I will show you something on here shortly. You might have seen a very quick video I put out a month or so ago with Photogenics, which was the application that D-Paint got quite unfavourably compared with towards the end of its life. I talked about that, I think, in last week's art stream. I do like that isn't the best dithering you're going to see this side of because it's actually misaligned still, so there we go. Just start that again. Yeah. You grew up in something. Yeah. Actually, I used to live in Lancing for a little bit. I don't know what you think of Lancing, Phil. But I was only there for a few months. Yeah. I live near the seafront in Lancing, so that's not to be confused with Lancing in Michigan, which I think actually Lancing in West Sussex is actually twinned with. That was OCP Advanced Art Studio, yes. Dirty Boys Singing to God. That was popular on the Spectrum and the CPC, I think. Try paste a link, because I think I can approve them from this end. So if you want to paste a link, I'll see if I can approve it. So, yeah. So, yeah, you can see how it's actually very... I mean, obviously I'm sort of talking and thinking at the same time as I'm doing this. So this isn't as quick as I would normally be able to do these things. But it gives you an idea of actually how, when you break down an object like a... yeah, that's not actually working, that, is it? So when you break down an object like rocks and stuff like that and so forth, you can actually create some nice looking pixel art quite easily. Okay, so yeah, that's sort of like the basic process of building a rock. I could do a bit more to that. I could obviously start adding in some sort of little foliage bits, little tufts of sort of not rock plants, but sort of like little bits and pieces growing out of them. So, but yeah, you can see how you can build up these things quite easily. And once you sort of then get into alignment, this is how you can build up quite sophisticated tile maps. So I'm just going to save that as just sort of like an example rock. There we go. Let's see if I can drag and drop a file and not crash the Amiga again. I don't know what happened that last time. It was really weird, wasn't it? There we go. That should now come through. Dirty Boy Sing to God, so... Oh, thanks, Mara. Oh, yeah, I'll definitely drop you a line, so, yeah. Yeah, no, I've travelled quite a lot in Italy. Oh, has it crashed again? I wonder if it's just something to do with the fact that that's an extra half bright picture. I'll be honest with you, I don't usually draw with extra half bright, so... Just going to try it once more. Worked that time, fine. So essentially what I've been working on here to tidy up these bits and pieces actually is to kind of do what you was just watching me painstakingly do, which was to fill in these sort of gaps and just sort of begin to enhance the look of the look of this sort of cliff or whatever it would be. Oh dear, I'm still on freehand tool. I want to go to the vertical line tool now. And I need that colour. So this is just going to take a bit of time to do. Obviously, I'm not going to do all of it here in the stream. But I wanted to show the process of how this gets tidied up. You know, from that very basic sort of rough outline. And what you can see down here is that I've started doing that down here. There isn't a lot in Lancing these days. It's sad, really, because actually the village centre or the town centre of Lancing, even sort of 15 years ago, was a lot more vibrant than what it is now. You know, you had places like the British bookshops and Sussex stationers. I think W.H. Smith's was there. I think Woolies was there. There was quite a few shops. You had all the banks and the post offices, a few cafes, and you know, it was all right. It you know, certainly saved having to go into Brighton or Worthing every time, but yeah, it's looking a bit sorry for itself now. So yeah, I never went in that video rental store though, Phil, because I never went to Lancing when I was younger. It was only to Worthing or sort of like Goring, as it wasn't my dad's aunt, but and I'm still in touch with them, but my dad had some sort of like adopted cousins, as it were. It was actually my dad's dad, who sadly passed away in '84, but it was one of his best friends. Obviously, they stayed in touch even when they had kids, and basically used to come and key Vicky, like you've been instructing people. And they used to see each other, and you know, sort of down in Brighton and stuff like that, and which is where my granddad's friend lived, and so my dad kind of got on well with my granddad's friends' kids, and they kind of became like cousins almost, and they're still in touch these days. They live in Stanning, so, and I'm in touch with them now, which is really nice. Really nice people. So yeah, when I moved down here, it was a bit of a fresh start for me in many respects, moving from Devon, but I had a lot of connections here, so in Sussex, and never moved away. I do love Scotland and that, and I've always said that if I had the means, I would certainly have a bolt hole up in Scotland. But you won't be moving me on from Sussex anytime soon, let's put it that way. So yeah, you can see sort of like the general process that this takes to tidy this up and yeah, make a good job of it essentially. So you went to the same grammar school for a wee bit, yeah. Yeah, the seafront's nice in Lancing. Yeah, where they've got that, I think it's a water sports centre and also a really good restaurant now, isn't it? But when I lived in Lancing, that was half built. They'd not finished. I think they'd started building it, and whilst I was living there, the company that was building it went bankrupt. So for many years, that structure on the seafront there was like half finished, but they finished it off really nicely, and it's very popular. I quite enjoy cycling. Because I do quite a lot of cycling. I cycle to work every day, but I quite often cycle up from where I live in Ferring. I cycle from here up to East Worthing, sort of Sompting direction. Then I cross the A27 and head up over the Boston Road up to Stenning Bowl, then drop down the other side into Stenning, then come down the Downs link from Stenning down to Shoreham, pick up the trail along the seafront there, and then from Widewater along to Lancing. It's a really nice ride, so, and obviously back through into Worthing, so that's a nice ride on a good day. So yeah, might do that next weekend if the weather's good. Always better if you actually stop off at the Chipwick as well in Worthing, so that is one thing that Worthing in my opinion has always been vastly superior to Brighton, is the quality of the fish and chip shops. Second to none in Worthing, some of the best in the south. Not as good as the chips that you fish and chips you get from the Chippy and Carla Lacauche just before the Sky Bridge though. I'm trying to remember the name of the place, but that to me is the best fish and chips you can get in the UK. But as that's a fair old trek from me, I don't get up there as often as I'd like, so. But yeah, the Chipwick in Worthing's my. Don't go there often because it is quite expensive, but it's always good. Yeah. Late Night Reviews, hey there. How you doing? Thanks for joining us. Hey there, Richmond Cave. How you doing, Neil? You cycle from Guildford to Brighton. Yeah, it's quite a way. That is the downsink, I think, isn't it? Late Night Reviews. I've done Shoreham to Southwater, where the country park is. I think it's the Fielding Quarry, isn't it? And yeah, it's a fair old jaunt. But how far do I cycle? I cycle probably about, well, my commute to work there and back every week is about 50 miles in total. I do a week on a bike minimum, but I'm always using the bike for all sorts of other things. So you're moving to Brighton, maybe? Yeah, I used to live in Brighton from 2002, and then I moved in late 2005. That's when I moved to Lancing for a short while, and then I moved to Worthing in late 2006, I think it was. I still regularly visit Brighton, obviously. It's only a simple train ride. But yeah, you can see the general process of working on these cliff tops here. You just basically scribble down the paint, as it were. You can't beat the Chipwick. You're right there, Zoe. Neil says he tried to run D-Paint PC version really fun. Nominated it, did not work. Amiga hated it. Yeah, the last time I used D-Paint on a PC was about 20 years ago, Neil. Deluxe Paint version 2, which I think was roughly comparable with Deluxe Paint 3 on the Amiga. But yeah, I've never done it with the KCS power board like you have. So, but yeah, I mean, it worked pretty well. But yeah, Amiga Deluxe Paint is where it's at. Look out for a video this week where I'm going to go through which version of Deluxe Paint I think you should get according to budget. Of course, all of that video will be assuming that you want to pick up a genuine version. Obviously, other copies are available. Oops, I'm not wrong. But yeah, so look out for that if you're interested. Yeah, I love to cycle as well, Late Night Reviews. What do I think of Brighton? I like Brighton. I think it's changed a lot, actually, though. Even in the time that since I've been there, I think it's just because I've gotten a bit older, I'll be honest with you. In my late teens, early 20s, I loved it, but I have to say I couldn't personally live in Brighton. One, because all the areas that I would like to live in would be really expensive. And it is really expensive to live in now, so, but I do like it. I love the lanes. and I love the nightlife. I'm hoping to go and see John Digweed at Concord 2 next week, so that would be epic. Diggers is one of my all-time dance music legends. Him and Sasha killed it in the 90s, so with amazing mixes like the Renaissance mix collection, Northern Exposure, and of course obviously his seminal Bedrock label as well. So yeah, Brighton. I do love Brighton. I adore the fact that I can just get the train there really easily. So yeah, so if you're thinking of moving to Brighton, you do actually move to Brighton. I think you're going to love it. So I know that I love Brighton, but it's just that I personally wouldn't live there myself. Now where I live now is more my kind of place. So can't beat the oh wait, I've already said that. So yeah, so that's the process there. Let's just do a time check. It's 7 o'clock. So I've been on for an hour, haven't I? Have I been on for an hour? I think I've been on for an hour. Yeah, Coalition. Yeah, I used to go there as well. Used to go in all the usual haunts like Elder Beach and the Zap Club, and obviously a lot of places still there like Charles Street and stuff like that. Honey Club was the other one, wasn't it? And was it Digital? I think that was that. Is that what was the beach? I forget that. There was also lots of other little quirky places along there which are no longer there. And of course, obviously, the Cheese Fest, like Event 2 and Creation or Paradox as it was for a little while before that. So, yeah, used to get back in at 10 a.m. Yeah, tell me about it. I'd still occasionally do that. I occasionally go up to Trance Sanctuary in London, which is usually at Egg. I've got a funny feeling that that was yesterday. I think it's every other month. But I don't do it very often these days. It's pretty knackering. And I've had enough of sitting at East Croydon station platform in the cold at 7 a.m. waiting for the train back to Brighton. So yeah, so I'm going to get myself another green tea. Hey there, Phil. Hope you're well. So yeah, I think I've been on for an hour. I'm going to grab a tea. I'm just going to save this, and I'm going to be back shortly. And I'm just going to call this E just for the sake of it. And what I want to go through next is how I'm actually going to draw this tree, because what you can see here is this really naff-looking tree with its trunk and roots here. So yeah, so I'm going to show you how I go about creating foliage. And so forth. So yeah. I haven't tried World's End in Brighton, Neil, no. But that'd be cool, yeah. Be up for that, so. Right, so see you in a moment, guys. So I'll leave you with the view of the Amiga 1200, which I'm using this evening. Right, all back. Just going to sort things out here. There we go. And I've got myself a nice matcha green tea, so yeah, less boozy than Friday night's gaming streams with me. Can't be drinking on it. Oh, see you later, Dasley. It's apparently a pub with retro gaming. Oh, sounds like it's probably taken on the name from the third of the Cornetto trilogy, doesn't it? That was the World's End pub, wasn't it? Wait for this all to blow off and you know, have a pint down the Winchester, wasn't it? So question for the intermission. That's a good one, Phil. I like that idea. Maybe I should do more one of those, but yeah. So if there had been an Amiga 2400, what specs do you think it would have had? Well, the thing is, I don't know if you know, Phil, but it did actually exist. And I believe that Doug in the chat actually has an A2200 motherboard, which was actually a finalised motherboard for an actual product. But none of the subsidiaries of Commodore actually ordered it because they just didn't think anybody wanted it. And right they were, because by 1992, why on earth would you want a ECS 020 Amiga? I mean, you know, VGA had been out since 87, for goodness sake. So the A2400 was a 4-slot version of the A2200. So if you think about an Amiga 4000 or 3000, it has a backplane riser card which goes into it, which means that the unlike the Amiga 2000, the cards plug in horizontally. So the A2200 was a smaller case and had 2 card slots, and the A2400 was the 4-card slot. And then they'd also built an 030 variant of this called the A3200 and A3400. And basically those were the same machine but with an 030. So, but of course, again, nobody wanted them. So, and a real last-minute rush, because by this time Bill Sidneys had been sacked from Commodore. Greg Berlin, Dave Haney, Scott Schaefer, and so forth. Trying to remember the other guy's name, but basically they lashed together the Amiga 4000 at the remnants of an A3400, and basically, if you look at the riser card on the Amiga 4000, you'll actually see, I believe it has still silk screened onto it, A3200 stroke A3400 daughter board, and it's also part of why the A3640 is called the A3640, not the A4640 or something like that, I guess. So, yeah, so it's that's basically the genesis of the Amiga 4000. It was a lash together at the last minute, out the remnants of the A22, you know, all those different models that I've just been on about, and but essentially the A2200 or A2400 was a replacement for a cancelled project called the Amiga 1000 Plus, which was a pizza box. So if you think of a Mac LC or LC2, you know, like little pizza box cases, that was going to be an AGA Amiga. It would have come out sort of like at a similar time frame as the Amiga 3000 Plus. It wouldn't have had a DSP as far as I'm aware, but that would have been a SCSI-based pizza box style Amiga with AGA chipset, and was to be priced for about $1,000 US. Got cancelled because of Bill Sidneys, and so that's the basically A2200 project or A2400 project was its replacement, and the Commodore engineers used to call that project, just to pee off Bill Sidneys, the Amiga 1000 Junior, because he was he was the project lead, I believe, in the IBM PC Junior, which wasn't a successful project. But as much as Bill Sidney's was not a good presence at Commodore, I do feel that he gets a bit of a beating unfairly, because he was actually quite an instrumental part of original IBM PC project, Project Chess, which he also worked on with Lou Edbrecht, who Bill Sidney's brought into Commodore. It's an interesting story about that, but maybe one for another day. But essentially, yeah, Bill was quite an instrumental and you know, a good presence on the IBM PC project. Now, whatever you think of the PC, and I don't own one, and of course the original IBM PC was nothing compared to an Amiga, but I do think, unfortunately, Amiga community, because he did do some shit things at Commodore, and he deserves the pillorying that he gets for what he did at Commodore, but I don't believe that he is a man without redemption, shall we say. So, if you didn't know about this, Neil, oh, okay, well, if you ever want to know more, yeah, AAA. See, again, yeah, it's, you've always wanted, yeah, that's why, Ravi. The A4000 is just basically the remnants of the A3400. So, yeah. It's the interesting thing is that whilst the Amiga 4000 was a bit of a lash together, whilst all this commotion was going on at Commodore Engineering, it did mean that the Amiga 1200, obviously, which we're using today, actually kind of got developed without too much hindrance. So, yeah. So, yeah, it's a shame about the Amiga 1000 Plus, because that would have been a really neat Amiga to have released in 1991. You know, it would have been about the right price. It's also, yeah, the Amiga 4000 with an 030 in it, that's, yeah, more close to what an A3400 was. But remember, the A3400 was, again, an ECS Amiga, so, yeah. And actually, I think some of the dev units of the Amiga 4000 were labelled A3400 as well. I think there's a few black ones of those lingering about if you Google it. So, Obligement, the French Amiga website will have a few photos of that on there, so look for those. Yeah, so Phil, yeah, that's what the A2400 would have been if it had existed, which it did. Yes. Sorry, that spoiled the fun, didn't that? Yeah, AAA had been worked on since 1989. Lou Edbrecht was brought in by Bill Sidney's to assist or do a bit of consulting at the time, mostly on Commodore's ill-fated foray into really pushing PCs in-house. But when Bill was fired, Lou stepped in as the Vice President of Engineering at Commodore in its last year and a bit of its existence. And if you watch Dave Haney's Deathbed Vigil, you'll see that Lou Edbrecht is in there. Yeah, so Rattigan fan, even though he laid off most of the original stuff. I don't know a huge amount about the Tom Rattigan era, apart from what other people have said. It seemed like he was on the right line, so, but unfortunately it appears there was a bit of a personality clash between himself and Irving Gould. Shame, really, but there you go. So, yeah, that whole period of around about late 1990, 91 through to about late 92 is quite a tumultuous period for the Amiga. But, yeah, obviously AA, the Pandora chipset is what its code name was for AGA or AA. Pandora was meant to be in the Amiga 3000 Plus as its debut machine in around about early 92. That would have obviously included the AT&T DSP in it, which would have allowed an onboard modem and 16-bit or whatever it was, sound sampling and audio playback. So it's like they said in Kickstart 1.2, we made Amiga, they fucked it up. Don't usually swear on this stream, but I think it's justified in there, so... Right, okay, so let's carry on with some pixel art. Interesting diversion, good question, Phil. Well, let's make that a regular feature. So I believe I've got about 30 minutes left. Yeah, we'll go on to this. So So trees, how do I do trees? Now, unfortunately, because I've been fiddling with extra half bright, I've got quite a lot of colours here. So, but essentially, the first 16 colours here were my, you know, initial colours that I mixed up. So, yeah. So, yeah, it's yeah, those were my original colours, and so what you can see over here is that I've just sort of scribbled these down onto the canvas just to see how they mix together, just to make sure that they're complementary and they look pretty good to me. And the way that I basically build up trees, I found this actually, I will link to them, so I don't want to take credit for this. This is actually somebody else's innovation, shall we say, but I thought this was a very neat way. I will show you another way, which is the way that I also sometimes do it, which I'm sure lots of other pixel artists do, but is generally the way that I do it. But I found this really, oh, it started too far high up, this really cool blog post by another pixel artist, and I will link to them in the notes. But basically, they started off with drawing a circle out and then essentially light sourcing it. So remember that direction of light. This has got to match that shading, and so this just allows us to. I think that's probably about right. I can obviously adjust this. This will allow us to essentially light source this sphere. And basically, by doing this, we sort of roughly build up the basic building blocks of the tree. So remember, the light is coming from this direction on these rocks, so this has to match that. Otherwise, it will just look weird. I will need to tidy up this sphere because it's not quite right. So I've got the light sourcing a bit wrong. Let's just tidy this over here. I'm just going to catch up the chat in a moment. If I had to pick one year, what was the golden year for the Amiga? Well, obviously there's what I've read about, because whilst I probably played on an Amiga for the first time in around about 1990-91, I don't think it was earlier than that. I might be wrong, but I can't imagine that I played on an Amiga in the 80s, because I don't remember actually using a computer in the 80s full stop. I'm taking a bit too much off there now. Let's just tidy it up. I think that's good. So I could go for a year that I've read about, which is generally considered to be a good year for the Amiga, or I could go for a year that I know of the Amiga, so first-hand experience. I would say that the golden year for the Amiga was probably 1992, maybe 91. I know that probably sounds a bit late, but at that time it was just before... Oh dear, that's not right. It was just a bit before the Super Nintendo came out in the UK and in Europe in general. But it's also the time period where the Mega Drive really started to get motoring in the UK as well. So, but there was lots of really good games coming out at that period of time for the Amiga. You had Lotus Turbo 2 Challenge. You know, the Amiga 500 was flying. Commodore were busy on Operation Screw It All Up with their fast pace of releases. Is it the Amiga 500? No, it's the 500 Plus. No, it's a 600. No, it's a 1200. Yeah, that was my golden year. Mostly because also that was the same year as the Barcelona Olympics, and they rocked. That was a really good Olympics. Yeah, what kind of person has a vintage year for Olympics? I do. There we go. So I've roughly light sourced this sphere here. That's a hard word to pronounce, isn't it? Sphere. It's like Miranda. Sphere. You know. Yeah, I'm going to do Miranda. I love Miranda. I know it's not everybody's cup of tea. Yeah. So that's roughly got that. So that would be my pick. But I think the Amiga, generally considered that perhaps the best year for the Amiga was probably around about 91, maybe 1990, but yeah. Yeah, we were naive to Commodore's ballsing up. Yeah. So just recapping the chat. Oh, Gods has been released for the PS4. I think I did see something about that Dirty Boys Sing to God. Yeah, I don't know what it's like, but yeah, that sounds fun. Lemon drizzle vegan bar, pressed fruit, and a strong coffee time. Enjoying the stew. Oh, lovely, Pishbot. Well, I'm enjoying myself a matcha green tea. I must admit, when I went into the kitchen, because I was a bit peckish, I had some. I just grabbed whatever came to hand. And I just had some trifo with some hummus spread on the top. Oh, no, it sounds disgusting, but it's quite yummy actually. What's a Nintendo Switch? That's cool. So it was Bitmap Brothers. I'm sure other people have said that. So Another World was Delphine. Yeah, Wolf at Dawn. Hi, Wolf at Dawn. Hope you're well. Yeah, you can recognise their style. It's very distinctive, very metallic. Oh, that's interesting, Ravi. Yeah, did I not catch that podcast? I will have to look that up. So, yeah, the Freddie Mercury song. Yeah. Oh. Chris Akabusi, Linford Christie, Smash, and also Sally Gunnell. Don't forget Sally Gunnell, guys. Yeah, that was a great Olympics. Much better than Atlanta. That was rubbish. I remember watching a bit of the Atlanta Olympics in HMS Devonport, which is a naval base down in Plymouth. Another story for another day. I hadn't been court-martialed. I was only, how old was I? 96. I'd have been 13. What was I going to say? Yeah, 92, great year. Happy memories. I remember a long coach trip on the National Express from Devon to Heathrow, where my uncle picked me up from Heathrow Airport at the coach station there and driving me back in the Vauxhall Cavalier down the A40 Western Avenue, and yeah, just hearing sort of like the updates on the Olympics on the radio and playing on my cousin's Amiga 500. Yeah, happy days. So that's basically the basic starting point for the tree. And then what I do is I just basically work in this leaf structure. So I can just add in a couple of little nodules on the end here. You know, you don't have to do anything too special for these. It's just give a little bit of irregularity. Do the same for these ones. Hey there, Pixels Don, hope you're well. Hey, Robert Lee, hope you're well. Golden year was 90 for Rob. By mid-91, Windows 3.0 for work and kind of such. Oh, that's a shame. Shaded spheres is the main thing you can do in pixel art. Aha! Well, you might be able to draw a tree then in that case, because that's what we're doing here. I mean, whilst we are indeed drawing a shaded sphere, I'm just showing a really neat hack for how you can start to draw effective looking trees. So yeah, I'm just drawing a couple of little nodules or little outcrops from the sphere. Almost looks like one of those depth charges, doesn't it? Okay, and then what you can do is you can just come into here and start drawing, let's just draw this one like so, some little leaf structures. And I'm glad you could make it, Rob. And yeah, so just draw these in like so. Oops, like so. You bought the 92 Olympics game for me. Actually, oh, I have no idea what that's like. Neil, is it any good? You saw the Atlanta Olympic grounds last year. Look crap. Yeah, that's a sad thing about the Olympics, isn't it? Quite often, a lot of these Olympic venues end up desolate wastelands. So the circus has moved on, as they say. So yeah, so just basically just drawing these little leaf patterns like so. Sometimes the shades overlap into the next sort of area. So this dark green or darker sage green doesn't just inhabit the slightly lighter shade, it also moves into the other areas around it. So sort of like into the next lighter shade, as it were. So yeah, it's not just and yeah, and I just added a few little random sort of shadow areas just to split it up a bit. And the idea is that once you've completed it, I won't complete all of that one, but essentially you'll end up with, I'm just going to move this one out of the way. You can then basically do some different shades. I'm just going to change the little yellow shade in this because it's just a little bit too subtle. I'm just going to use a stencil, so shift and apostrophe, the tilde key gives you that, and I'm just going to pick that, oops, not that colour. There you go, turn that one off. And I'm going to just do it with this one because I think that will stick up a bit better. There we go. Do the same for these ones here. There we are. Oh, Dirty Boys, sing to God, you enjoyed World Games and CC for the weightlifter. Never played that, so yeah, you did have that feeling of having the best computer in the world, Amiga, in the early 90s, yeah. It's terrible, like most Russian Olympic Games. I did have a hunch it might still be like that. Track and field's still the best. Well, you saw me playing track and field, Neil, at Play Blackpool, and I'd have had well, actually, to be fair, if I've not had anything to drink, I'm rubbish at it as well, so it doesn't really matter, does it? So, yeah. So, okay, so I've got these spheres. Oh, there's time for stencil. Just erase this. And what we can do is we can start building out this the tree. So we start at the bottom in the most shaded area. Like so. Just gonna make this, I should actually make a bit of room for this. I'm just going to pick these up. Put them on the spare page. And then let's go for this one. And what I do is I just gradually layer up these bits and pieces. And this bit goes obviously on the edge because this is the highlights. I'm actually going to use that one there. Go, and then I come over back to this one. So I'm going to use this one here. So I'll just gradually build this up. It's quite a neat way of doing this, isn't it? Just bring this one here, because stamp that one down in the middle. No, let's not overdo it. Let's grab this one. And just drop this one. It's not the most naturalistic looking of shapes, this tree by the looks of it. Just pop that one and this one here. So now having done that, what I can do is I can start connecting these areas up. Let's just zoom out a little bit, right click on that, pick the colour again with the comma key as a shortcut, and I can just basically start connecting up these little darker areas here. Just always when you've got the magnifying glass, just keep an eye on what's happening on the left. That's quite a good tip when you're just starting out, because it can be sometimes hard to see the wood from the trees. Yeah, it just helps you sort of keep some sense of perspective of what it is that you're actually doing. So yeah, this is a really neat hack for drawing trees, essentially. Like I say, I will give credit to the pixel artists that I've discovered this from. In the notes and on the catch-up, I will actually put a card in here just to say, you know, so that, you know, anybody watching this on catch-up will be able to find the resource there, because I don't want to take credit for the technique. I just thought that's a super ingenious way of doing it. I still do some of my trees using another method, but yeah, so I'm actually going to take that one module off there. So yeah, and I can just basically work on all these shadow areas and just gradually connect up most of the different parts, not all of them, but most of them, just to give a sense of randomness, but also a little bit of extra depth to this. So yeah. It all makes sense now. It does, Retro Monkey. Dirty Boys Sing to God. Why is it not taking the block of the background with it when you loop? Select the tree parts. Do you mean like when I... So my background here is pink, and you're asking why is it not picking up the pink with it? Is that what you're referring to there? Dirty Boys Sing to God? Would it be hard? No, not really, Doug. To be honest with you, yeah, windows open really quickly on... I mean, they open quickly on the A600 as well. I mean, I've got so used to using the Amiga 600 now that it feels pretty nippy. The one thing that will feel slow is just generally moving around Workbench and copying files. The Amiga 1200 is definitely much faster for that. I mean, it is much faster in general. I'll do a sysinfo in a minute just so you can see the comparison. But on the whole, the main speed bottleneck with pixel art is myself. You know, this is a slower process, as with most sort of creative things. Yeah. But yeah, if that's what you mean, Dirty Boy Sing to God. But the reason is that I'm using what's called colour mode. And what that means is that it won't pick up what's set as the background colour, which is currently this pink. So say, for example, I set the background colour to this rather obnoxious vermilion colour, and then I went to pick this up, you'll find it actually does pick up a pink background, because it's that's one thing that is faster, Doug. It moves brushes around like silk. So, yeah, so basically, that's because the background colour doesn't match. However, there's a couple of caveats to this. If I set the background colour to the pink again, and again I pick up the brush, you'll see it's got transparency. But if I go up to the mode menu and click on replace, or is it, no, it is replace, you'll see that it does actually restore the stamping down of the background colour. But you've also got, so let me just change this to vermilion again. I think it's the auto transparency option. If you've got that turned on, what this does is it will, when you pick up a brush, it will look at the top right corner, the top left, top right, bottom left corner. And if all four of those colours are the same colour, it will actually consider that to be the transparent colour. So you can see here in this case, even though the background is set to vermilion, it has worked out that that is the transparent colour. So that's generally what's happening there. So okay, I hope that is finishing. And Wolf at Dawn is absolutely correct. So let's just see how we're doing for time. We're going to go for about another 10 minutes, guys. And then I would compel you to obviously get on to Amiga Bill's stream. He's on Twitch. You'll find a link on his Twitter. I'm sure most of you know it, but I'm not sure what he's doing tonight. But I should imagine there'll be some cool games, some good Amiga news. So I hope you've been enjoying the stream this evening, guys. I've really enjoyed it. It's a little bit different to Friday's streams, which are more centred around gaming. And obviously this week it wasn't just about the Amiga. We looked at free platformers and free platforms. Zool on the Amiga, Sonic 1 on the Mega Drive, and also Super Mario World on the SNES, the Super Nintendo, and yeah, it was good fun. So that's available on my channel to catch up if you wish at any time. No worries, glad I could help there, Dirty Boy Sing to God. So a little highlight there. So yeah, you can see how this happens. Now obviously what you would also need to do is draw in a trunk. Now I could just do a stencil here. Actually, I'm just going to choose the green colours I've generally been using. So this is actually an extra half bright mode on the Amiga, which basically is a 32 colour screen. But the second 32 colours are, well, as it says, half as bright. And what this means is that you on ECS and OCS Amigas you get 64 colours, where usually you only have a maximum of 32, except for hand mode. So there's nothing about this image that requires 64 colours. I was just experimenting with something earlier on when I drew out my spheres, as it were. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to draw in a trunk. So I've got that stencil there. So what that means is that I'll be able to draw in, you know, sort of whatever colour without affecting. Well, I need to turn on my highlight colour as well there. Oh, rats. Amateurs, eh? Not that one. There we go. Which allows me to paint without affecting this. So again, as I say, do check out my most recent video on that. And what I can do is I can just then just, you know, start to work on the trunk. Just reduce the size of that brush, just using the minus key there. I can right click to obviously just paint with the background colour. This is just sketching at the moment, so don't expect anything to look wonderful here. But always remember, on trees, the branches are generally going to point in a slightly upward accented direction. I mean, obviously you do get droops and stuff, but yeah, generally speaking, you always want to make sure that the branch is pointing in an upwards direction. Go. And what I can now do is I just go back in. So the N key is really useful in Deluxe Paint. If you use N, it will center the magnifying glass at that particular position on the page. So that's a really super helpful shortcut. to know with Deluxe Paint, so I would be lost without my N key, so you could say it would be the end of the world. I hate when my favourite Amiga students live streams clash. Yeah, no, it's so tricky. I did hold back on publishing the time for this one this week because I wanted to make sure that, because Bill has been doing Amiga streams on Sundays lately, and I wanted to make sure that I wasn't clashing with that. Mostly because I realised that Bill is a much better streamer than me, and I actually do enjoy watching him as well. So, and also on Friday evenings, I'm aware that Yamigos, Boat and Aaron, that they obviously do their podcast recordings then as well. So it's always tricky, but I hopefully I've not done too badly so far at avoiding that. And then, of course, obviously with extra half bright, I could actually paint in the exact half shadow. Actually, I'm going to show you a cool trick here. Rather than picking the colour, let's just go back here. What you can do is you can go up to the menu in half bright mode and click the half bright option. And if you left click, what that will do is, if you left click, it will, sorry, yeah, that's right, left click, it will paint with whatever the half bright colour is of that particular shade that you've got selected. I believe that's the case, or is it the colour of what you're painting on? Let's turn this distance off. I'm just going to double check that. No, it's what you're painting on, I beg your pardon. That makes more sense. When you right click, it will actually go with the non-half bright version of what you're painting. So I think half bright is a really underutilised mode on the Amiga. It's actually really good for animation because it's a very good way of doing shadows. So big up the half bright mode. So, but you can see how effective this is. Obviously, there's nothing stopping you using these shades of brown on a standard 32 colour screen, but it's yeah, we've managed to squeeze in another little tip there. Oh, I'm going to undo that. And like I say, if you right click, it will just restore back to the non-half bright variant. So I think it seems to be in a greyish shade. I always thought. Let's just double check that. Maybe I'm doing it wrong. I'm going to double check that, but generally that's the case. So, but yeah, you can see how nice that looks now. And then what we can do is we can just come in here, and then we can just start hinting at the curve of the trunk with just some very gentle lines. And maybe just sort of hint at a little nook in the tree. I would do a better job than this, I'll be honest, but time is of the essence. Let's just pop that. Could be my little nook. Maybe I'll just look darker. Like so. I could finish this off more, but you get the general idea of just how effective this mode actually is. So remember, our shadow is actually over on this side, so I could actually just make this a little bit darker here. There we go. There we are. So I could finish that off a bit more, but this won't actually be the tree that I plant on top of here because I want to do a slightly different tree. But you can see how if I was to stick, well, that would look rubbish there, but if that was the tree that I had painted, obviously give or take the, but you can see how effective that approach is. So yeah, there you go. So, what's the time? It's 10:02. Let's catch up the chat, and I think let's wrap things up. So, I hope you've enjoyed the stream, everybody. So, he's playing some Slam Tilt. Awesome. Really want to get slam tilt on my Amiga 1200. Been loving D-Paint tutorials, makes you want to get into Pixar more. Wolf at Dawn, do it. I'm going to release a video, as I say, this week about which version of Deluxe Paint to go for. It will look at the price of the productions and I'm reading what's on my screen. Does anybody else have that where you read something and you're talking to somebody and you say the word that your eye is on? I do it all the time. I don't know whether it's me, my age, or what. I'm not that old, but you know, I'm getting worse as I get older. But anyway, so yeah. So which version to go for, depending on which Amiga you might have. You know, if you obviously just assume that you want to buy an actual real physical copy. Let me just grab some more copies here. Oh, they're heavy. Right. So yeah, so you know, whether it would be Deluxe Paint 3 perhaps, or maybe Deluxe Paint 4, or maybe Deluxe Paint 5, maybe even Deluxe Paint 2, which obviously is an option. And this was the box that the optical Mega Mouse came in. So yeah, so I'll be going into all of that, what you should pay. And generally what I would recommend. So yeah, look out for that this week. Hopefully it'll be out tomorrow. So you're enjoying a tree life, yeah? It's like Spring Watch, but with less squirrels, which is a lie because I like squirrels and I've got quite a few squirrels in this room. Oh, thanks, Pitchbot. That's very kind. Thank you, Wolford. That's nice. Words are hard. Yeah, they are. Oh, I'm glad you enjoyed the stream, Ravi. So no, I think that's normal. Word aphasia or something. Oh, never come across that word before. Word aphasia. I'm going to look that up in the dictionary. So sometimes I type what I'm saying instead of what I mean to if I'm chatting. I do that all the time as well, Neil. I don't feel so stupid now. I just thought it was me. I mean, I'm not technically dyslexic, but when I was at school, I did have special needs classes for English because it just wasn't very good. So yeah, I'm really glad you enjoyed it as well, Phil. That's really cool. So it's been a real pleasure to spend some time with you guys this evening. Thank you for the interesting questions, the fabulous chats. Obviously these roots of the tree, they're completely you know, sort of, I've done nothing to those. So if anybody's catching up the stream, just tuned in there, that was already there. I've done nothing to polish that. In fact, the trunk, I would do a lot more polish to the foliage on the tree, but you can see how effective that is. So yeah, it works quite well, doesn't it? So yeah. Oh, that's why you saw Bill Oddie behind your sofa. Yeah, yeah, I've been telling him to leave for the past few months, but the thing is though, he's quite a good cook, he's our Bill Oddie. Gets a bit stroppy, but you know, if you feed him peanuts, he seems to be all right. So you know, so yeah. So yeah, I'm glad you really enjoyed it. Yeah, just to recap, this Amiga 1200. Oh, hang on a minute, I'm doing this all wrong. This Amiga 1200 is mildly accelerated. It's got an ACA 1221 card in it. So it runs about the speed of an Amiga 3000, but obviously with the bonus of AGA graphics. So it's not the fastest Amiga 1200 that you'll find, but it's more than enough for what I do. And I just really enjoy having a minty Amiga 1200 as part of my Amigas, and you know, it's just nice to be able to you know, do some more on it. But to be honest with you, I've got so used to drawing on an ECS Amiga now that I've got used to drawing with a restricted colour palette. So yeah, so look out for the D-Paint video this week about which version to get. I'll see you guys in Amiga Bill's stream, I'm sure, in the chat. So I'm going to also get my dinner ready. So thanks for joining me. And I guess that all it remains for me to say is, see you soon. Bye. Click the big red button. Oh. Oh. Are you sure you want to end the stream? No, Mr. Gorbachev.